All right, and here we are. This is the Working Title Show with Zach Sams, and we are back. All right. We are back. This is the Working Title Show with Zach Sams in the new studios, and everything went flawlessly, didn't it? Yeah.
Great.
Guys, thanks for being here. As usual, well, with our new format, as usual, Dallas Coffin joining us, founder. Well, I guess, would you say founder or
no,
not founder? Your dad founded it, so CEO of Master Plan Consultants.
Yes.
And the new almost CEO.
Yeah, we're going to be buying USA Engineering, another 40-year-old business, civil engineering firm. So very exciting by closing on that and bringing their folks aboard and providing some more services.
That's awesome.
Great opportunity for us.
So I will have to extend your intro and add a new title in there soon. And backed by popular demand, Tyler Isbell with SRS Real Estate. I'm Zach Sams with Kensington Vanguard National Title. And joining us today, David Leininger. David, you have I'm looking at your past experience on LinkedIn to introduce you correctly, and it's like 7 pages long. So we're going to stick with today. Currently, you're the founder and principal advisor for Leininger Analytics. But, you know, the big reason we had you on today is you're also the past interim president and CEO of DART, Dallas Area Rapid Transit. And then for 10 years, you were the CFO for DART.
But hey, also,
I
got a little excited because I saw his Ryder Cup sweatshirt, which is an official Ryder Cup sweatshirt from 1995. And that got me asking why he was at the Ryder Cup in the first place. And he mentioned Club Corp, which then I asked my little AI helper here, anything cool about Club Corp, which then it brought up a story that, David, my dad joined Las Colinas Sports Club as the third member for $1,400 in 1983, 84? Yeah. And I had no idea that Club Corp at the time was, that wasn't my generation. But there's a story that about maybe Robert Dedman and you walking into a locker room that maybe you can expound on. Is that a true story?
Well, not that locker room. We didn't actually acquire that club until later. So there's another club where that's true, which there's a story like that. That's up in McKinney at Stonebridge Ranch when we had to step in at the behest of the FDIC when that went through bankruptcy. But there's a lot of Robert Dedman stories. So, there's a whole shit. Well, there's 4 or 5 on that. But,
well, this must be a fictitious story, but it's a great story.
If it's a good one, hang on to it.
Dedman walked you into the locker room at Las Colinas and with a revolver into a urinal.
Oh, I've never heard that one.
And said, "Watch this," and shot up a urinal with a revolver.
See, AI is still not trustworthy.
That is beyond anything that's in the realm of what I would consider likely.
Wow. Because he wanted to test the acoustics of the locker room because he thought it was too echoey.
think that would blow out your eardrums.
I was like, if this really is true, like, what a story.
Well, there are some other people who might be able to validate that, but it wouldn't be me.
It wasn't you, because in the story it said, "Hey, Leininger, watch this." So
that would be a little bit different sound check than the one we went through to start the show.
Yes, it would.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
It's a great story. It's just,
dadgummit.
Next sound check we'll do it. We'll just shoot our revolvers off instead of
There you go.
That'd be a real Texas way to start, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah. Well, David, we've been talking the last, I guess, probably 4 shows a lot about downtown Dallas and greater Dallas, and just I think there's been a lot of news about bringing downtown Dallas back up to its former glory, if you will. And I think we'd be remiss to not talk about mass transit in Dallas because it seems to always come up, and it seems like something we've been trying really hard to get right in Dallas, and maybe we have, maybe we haven't. I told you before the show, I live up in Argyle, commute to Dallas most days, and I've never been on DART myself. So I guess give us Is having mass transit, this is my question, is having mass transit just something that big cities think that they must have because other big cities have them? How does this all play in?
Well, kind of yes and no. I mean, there's an ego side to that. You'll hear normally a lot of people say every self-respecting international city has mass transit linkages between their airports and their center cities. But I think more fundamentally, the argument for mass transit, particularly rail, is congestion mitigation, because ultimately the highways, are limited in their capacity, and you need something that can move a lot more people a lot more efficiently. Now, beyond that, so that gets into the point of what is transit, and there's a lot of flavors of transit. There's a fixed route bus, and then there's rail, commuter rail that takes you intercity. Now you have microtransit, which is really more like Uber, individual basis. And there's the transit that people want because they're going to a ball game. They don't want to drive, and then there's all these flavors.
And we definitely have the congestion part at different times.
Solve that problem, yeah. You have a lot of congestion, and it went down for a while, during the pandemic and all that period. Now it certainly has recovered, but the thing about what makes transit difficult to deliver in Dallas-Fort Worth is that we're so distributed. We have two downtowns, in Fort Worth and Dallas.
Well, and you could argue that. You got Preston Center, you got Las Colinas, and you've got Legacy, you've got all these.
I was going to say, beyond that, you got Las Colinas, which actually has a bigger workforce than downtown Dallas, including uptown. Then you've got other centers around. You go up now to Frisco and the area up there, and all that corridor has got a big job center. So and you go on up to Denton. So when you start talking about how do you serve that, it's not. And then look at your suburbs now extending all the way out well north of Prosper, and you're pushing toward Grayson County. So you can't conceivably serve all those areas. So what do you have to serve? Fundamentally, ethically, you need to first deal with paratransit, which really supports people who are immobile or mobility limited, blind, deaf, whatever, physically impaired. Then you're trying to decide how best to deliver beyond that. Huge arguments about that, and right now that's what's dividing the suburbs from really the city of Dallas. City of Dallas really relies on and wants more bus service. Suburbs say we don't need bus service. What we need is access to higher speed rail, connections to the airport, and we want something more like on-demand Uber. And we want to take care of our immobile or mobility limited population. So long-winded answer saying there's a lot of people's opinion and view about that, but the reason that DART exists as opposed to Dallas Transit System, that was what was here serving City of Dallas for.
Right, and I didn't know that. You mentioned that before the show as well.
First it was private.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the city.
And it was, even before that, but it basically served just the City of Dallas. And I was telling Dallas that I actually saw a graph showing the decline in ridership, starting with the elimination of the streetcar lines.
Right.
There were streetcar lines serving all parts of Dallas going back in the 20s and 30s.
And those kind of still exist,
Some
don't
of them
they?
do. Yeah, there's uptown area still has a few of them. But so you started removing those, ridership started going down, people started shifting cars. Central Expressway, it opened up, more decline in ridership, more people shifting to cars. So fundamentally, we've become less transit dependent as a region over time. I was mentioning to Dallas, the per capita, the ratio of cars to people has gone up from like 0.5 to almost 0.85. And it's even higher in the suburbs.
Meaning there's 0.85 cars per person.
So on the average number of cars per household, it's over 2. And the biggest increase in the last 10 years is from 2 to 3.
Wow.
So, and why is that? Well, go out to Prosper. You have to have cars, and you have, kids going all over the place.
Right. A family of 4 has 3.2 cars,
There
basically.
you go.
We have 4 now.
Yeah.
We're about to have 4. I got a kid turning 6.
Drive.
I have 4 cars. You just said that out loud, and I didn't think about.
And
I have a fleet of vehicles.
we all want to go different places, and we don't typically want to go places necessarily that is DART accessible. For the first time, our company since I think my dad moved downtown in '83. We are not in downtown anymore, and a lot of it is my people don't really want to be down there, and none of them commute that way. They drive a car. They have their own car. They're not transit or bound, and they want to be in Oklahoma or some other office area.
There's another use case that we really can't really serve, and it's the single working parent with a couple kids.
Yes.
Who are school age. And they've got to get them to different schools sometimes, different times, they've got to get to work, different activities. There's no way that public transit can handle that group. It can handle people who have a stable job at a destination served by transit, like downtown, hotels, restaurants, office buildings. It can do, and Addison has good population there, or it can handle, or Parkland. Our biggest single in Dart, ridership for buses actually in Parkland. It's very compact, a lot of work, but it's also the ridership. A lot of it's driven by people coming in from the Fort Worth side, all the nurse professionals, all that, so forth. And then the other big bus ridership one outside of Jefferson Street is UTD up in Richardson. That's first and second competing with them, and it's all because students don't have cars up there. A lot of them are international.
Which is the Silver Line connects to UTD now, which is a game changer for Dart because it's east-west. It's the only east-west we've had.
Yeah, that's right, and it links now with two north-south lines over in Carrollton, over in Richardson, Plano area. So that's a really, really important connector, and it really benefits further north. But
it happened too late, it looks like, because you've got, a number of these municipalities that are unhappy and have called elections or considering calling elections. And so do you think, it's all about the 2 cents that the cities, want to keep their penny.
Wasn't last night in Irving, they just voted to put it on the May ballot?
yeah, I knew they were considering it, and let me break it down real quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say, what does that mean? Because people who are listening to this do not get that.
Yeah, in the statute that set up DART, there was a provision that every 6 years, the member cities, now 13, could elect to have a pullout election and step away. The other provision is that if you do that, you have to pay all of your accrued obligation relative for debt that's been expended up until that time on a pro rata basis. And if you also pull out, the day after the election is certified, all service stops.
So the lines that are there and the service there now, they're just ghost lines.
They just run through it.
Okay, it's called closed door service. You just go from Richardson to DFW.
The stop that was in Irving, you go past.
You just go past.
It actually might be better for your downtown because then you have express lines.
If you're looking for express lines, you're exactly right. But so Irving and Plano really started this process of really being aggravated with DART. And then Irving, though, for a different set of reasons, the park cities.
Only Town Highland Park so far, though. I think
Park, the university is considering. And then Farmers Branch, and then Carrollton is talking about it. Addison actually had a city council meeting on it. They are not considering it. That really wouldn't make any sense for them.
But if you waited all this time, they got a great key location.
Exactly. The too late, unfortunately, was aggravated by the pandemic because they had 3 years to the process and about $500 million. As well. But if I could, Plano, in my view, has a legitimate beef. Plano was 72,000 people in 1980. They're now over 300,000. They were 8% the size of Dallas. Now they're 25%, compared to what Dallas is. Dallas is 1.3 million. Their per capita sales tax went from being roughly the same as Dallas to now almost $80 per capita more. So not only did their population increase, but the spending occurring in the sales tax generation, and it's gone from it's up now to about $130 million a year that's being generated there. No one ever conceived that the suburbs would do that kind of contribution. And
so $130 million into DART?
Into DART annually.
And they don't get a lot for their services. I think
I
wrote about this in a column that I don't think people are feel like they're getting a lot for their money. That the lesson that they've learned is the cities that are not in DART are the ones that have really benefited. You've got Frisco, they've used their money for economic development, and then you've got Arlington, the largest city in the country without mass transit, and they've got the Rangers and the Cowboys.
The arcane minutia here, but it's pretty relevant. Something called 4A, 4B. When the 1 cent was passed for transit back when DART came in, Houston did, and Austin also came about the same time. That was really intended for big urban areas. There were some little cities out in West Texas that said, we're never going to be in a position to have a transit system, but we sure could use the 1 penny. Right. So they passed a 4A, section 4A and 4B for kind of transportation purposes, for public improvement purposes. It didn't take one legislative session that folks in areas like Frisco said, that could work for us. Mm-hmm. And so suddenly the fact they didn't have transit was a plus because now they had access to 1 cent and they could do things like buy down leases and actually propose to relocate customers.
Or buy land, as they've done.
Buy land and buy down leases and bring tenants from Dallas out to Frisco. So you can imagine how happy everybody is about that if you're in the Dallas side. But that 4AB thing spawned a lot of things, and Arlington has taken advantage. A lot of cities have taken advantage of it. And I've worked in suburbs and I've worked in center cities, so I understand the logic from both arguments there. But that really triggered a lot of this. The big issue, though, and I'm reluctant to say it, but it's really there, is the city of Dallas always had overweight control of the DART board, more than just their votes. So there's no question, and we've known this for a while, that the services being distributed into the Dallas area, geographic city limits of Dallas, are roughly 70% to 75% of all the cost of service being delivered.
But they don't pay that much in.
They're about 49% now.
It's a good deal for Dallas. The suburbs, then you're saying, are subsidizing the city of Dallas.
In theory, it's a good deal, but DART's not working.
Well, what about the actual using of it? Are these lines that are running? I'm assuming all day or in the morning. Are the trains full? I mean, like if I went and got on one, would I have a hard time finding a seat, or are they ghost town?
Now at peak time, they have been full. Now the pandemic knocked them back. They went all the way back. They went from roughly 80 million riders a year to under 35 million riders a year. That happened during the pandemic.
And that makes sense. People weren't going down. And where are we now?
They're back to about 58 million.
And the reason I ask, there was a time probably a few years ago, I thought, what if and I don't remember what happened. I was probably talking to somebody about DART, and I was like, what if I decided to, and I never did, but what if I decided to ride DART into Dallas and go to work and bring it back home? Like, how would that look for me? And so I live up in Argyle, as I said, and I guess the Denton transit connects into the DART transit somewhere like by the Lake Louisville or whatever. Yeah. So I'd have to drive there and park, get on the train, and then drive it to Dallas. But my office is at LBJ in the tollway, so there's no station there. I'd have to get off somewhere. I don't even know where.
What I tell you to do now is go to the Silver Line now that it's open and come over and get off in Carrollton and take a bus. But
right. So then exactly. So then I'd have to get off. Then I'd have to get on.
What you're saying is,
it'd be impossible.
Every time you have a transfer as part of a journey, you're cutting down the number of people who are willing to do that.
Right.
You're adding time and inconvenience.
And then once I'm at work, what if I had a lunch meeting outside of work?
So you are not our customer.
Yeah, I'm not. But the thought crossed my mind, what if I wanted to be? And there's got to be a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people like me up where I live that come to Dallas every day, but it doesn't make any sense.
I think the original, now looking back, I know my dad, our firm worked on the stations for DART. And, most of the stations originally were south. I think some of that was politically driven.
The first station.
The first stations. Yeah. Do you think that was the right way to go?
It was probably the politically necessary way to go. But in terms of the ridership really on the light rail line really kicked into high gear when you got up to Richardson.
That's right.
And then the green line going up to Carrollton. So from that standpoint, it would have been better to go rail north first, but that would have been awfully difficult.
And that's kind of what the problems has been, is from the very beginning, the city of Dallas contingency, they own the board, and said so and made sure. I know they've had some good I think, this is my opinion, like Rodney Schlosser. Rodney's a smart guy and a businessman and very shrewd, and I think he has sort of a global vision of, it is called Dallas Area Rapid Transit. All too often, Dallas's appointees they forget about the Dallas part. It's just Dallas Rapid Transit to them, and they leave out the area.
Well, they much more so than the suburban members. They operate on the dartboard side as instructed delegates.
That's right.
The council very definitely, tells them, what they're supposed to be considering. They are a regional board, and it is a separate board, and so they have a different.
Do you think that instruction's what's going to end up maybe killing the agency? Is the lack of sort of regional collegiality?
In my opinion, I'm not in it now. Is that it's the reason that Irving might proceed. It will proceed. They are so unhappy with the city of Dallas's influence and their unwillingness to acknowledge that you need to give the suburbs latitude in how they deem their own services are appropriate and how much
they know best for their city.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the answer to that is yes. I would say that the one thing that's also changed is the introduction of the iPhone and Uber. When you introduced that, it changed the nature of the last mile solution. And for the suburbs, Uber is a much better, and its equivalents, and there's a public version of that, multi-passenger. That's a much better solution. The buses, we tried big buses, little buses, getting in suburban areas. None of it works very well. You can't get the schedules right. And the irony is that the most innovation that occurred when I was there was in Plano. And it really related to when Toyota moved in. Toyota moved in up in Legacy on the west side. And if you know where their campus is, it's about 1.5 miles from where all the restaurants are. Chamber wanted to do something nice for Toyota moving in. They wanted to be a good welcoming. They said, let's find out a way to help them get their people over to the restaurants over the noon hour, so without getting in
help
cars.
The restaurants, help them.
Yeah. So we started. We said, okay, we'll put in a shuttle service. Yeah, and we quickly figured out that didn't work either, because a standard size bus was either too big or too small. So we said, let's go to an on-demand. Uber arrived. We were working with a small group out of Vancouver. They had been doing something. And we immediately saw that it was operating entirely different than what we thought. We were thinking people would order maybe for themselves and a friend, and say, I need to be there at 11:10. And what showed up, there'd be 6 people there, because the group, was around the lunch hour, and we were doing this from 10 to 2. Or it'd be 3, but it'd be different times. And we started getting heat maps and seeing that, okay, they're also not going to the same place every day, because the restaurants were all running promotions. So, and when the West Side restaurants opened up, if you remember when all that West Side opened up and all those new restaurants, the restaurants in the East Side countered. And you could see it in the heat map. You could actually see the move then, for the happy hours and the special lunches and so forth. You could literally watch it. And that's when we leaned back and said, we can never meet that demand through fixed route.
Because it varies too much.
It's dynamic by day, and a fixed route, it takes you 6 months to set a new schedule. You have to go through public hearings and all that. On demand is just that. It's on demand. So we said, okay, that will solve that problem. Then Plano had another problem for this. Look, we've got people who are active seniors who don't want to drive. They're not mobility impaired. They just don't want to drive. Right. And so they had actually put together a taxi service and said, you put in $100, we'll put in $100, and we'll give you $200 worth of chits. And then you can call a taxi and take you to the drugstore or go to your doctor or whatever. We were actually underwriting the $100. That was not Plano. They were smart to do that. But then it came back and said, we need more money. And I said, why? And they said, well, we got a lot of people using the service now, and we need to hire some more people to count the chits, because they were literally pieces of paper worth $2 each. I said, that's a horrible idea. I mean, there's such a bad idea. That means that you get people trading things around and taxi drivers. And I said, I'm moving you off of that. We're going to go to a wallet, digital wallet. We're going to give these guys a card, get them registered, and move them off it. That became the basis, actually, of GoZone. That is in Dallas. It was that conversion. So that's really the way you serve, the suburban areas. My own conclusion is that Plano's got a point. They probably should get some of their money back to reallocate more toward general mobility or street,
Improvement.
Last mile mobility.
Last mobility, all that. It makes a lot of sense. But it will come at the expense of fixed ride service in Dallas. There's just no way to get around it. Whether they pull out or whether you cut a deal with them. And if you cut a deal with one suburb, you got to cut the same deal with everybody. You can't say, Plano will give you this, Irving will give you that. You'd be unfortunate.
Get your crystal ball out. What do you think is going to happen? And maybe a second question of, can the legislature fix this?
Well, you know the answer to the second one, which is the legislature can't fix things, but they can react to things.
That's right.
Yeah, and there are some things they could do, but
yeah, I can make a good case. Government's not good at fixing anything.
Yeah. Well, slow down, partner. Here's what I think is probably going to happen, and I've never been very good at guessing elections, so it's an informed guess. That's it. Plano is not going to withdraw their pullout election. They are not. They've spent 2 years on this. They've staffed it. They have committees that are selecting candidate vendors. They're going forward, and they probably have a reasonably good chance of success because they're also advocating with their own citizens at the political level in favor of pullout. Irving is going to have a tougher time if they go with pullout because Irving has gone through 2 pullout elections and lost both times. And the second one was Jerry Jones underwritten to get them out of Dart so that they could build a new stadium at the old Cowboy Stadium location. And they lost both times because there's a ridership base over there that is more transit dependent, lower income, uses it more regularly, and show up at elections. And the election is in May. That's an off-cycle election, much lower turnout, that sort of thing. Now, the park cities, Highland Park, it just kind of depends on the day, whether enough well-meaning people show up and decide to stay in. I would think they might just elect to go.
They can be out of it so soon, too. They don't have rail.
Yeah, it's only a year or two for them, and they would start getting money. For Plano to pull out, it would be 7 to 9 years before they'd ever see any money.
Wow.
But then they would be seeing about 100, by then, there would be probably 150 to 160 million.
A lot of money.
Yeah. And it's too much for them not to think about. And obviously, Plano's got a good staff, and their politics are different, and their circumstances are different. They're also in a different county, and that should never be discounted. Their arrow points to the county commissioner's court in Collin County, not to the Dallas. And the council focuses that way. Dallas County Commission.
And just the voter in Collin County is much more attuned to showing up and voting to withdraw, I think. I mean, there's so few of them that ride. It's probably 2 to 3% of the population.
Well, I mean, we can talk. There's obviously political elements to all this, and the taxation and how they generate their money. But it to me, and somebody who knows nothing. I want to make that very clear. I know nothing about mass transit, but from just a common
one time
of what
expert.
Yeah, we talked about golf.
Talk
about his sweater.
We need to get you on a car. Get you in a rail car here.
But what I'm getting at is, more than anything, a city should offer public transportation for its people, even from just the most basic reason, like you said, the person that can't drive themselves, right? So. But my phone is vibrating in my pocket. I thought I'd put on Do Not Disturb. But to me, it seems like we said one day we must have mass transit. Okay, we're going to have it. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work for for so many people, because maybe you can get from point A to point B, but you also have there's certain
We
times you
also
got to
have
use
so
it.
many municipalities. There's more than 150 municipalities in North Texas. I mean, that's unusual in the United States. We have and we don't practice regionalism. We practice tribalism here.
Yeah.
And
That's the big problem.
that's a real problem. You want to build a substation, no, it needs to be in another city. Want to do transmission lines. Everybody will agree we need electricity. Everybody agrees we need transit. We need everybody agrees they need affordable housing. You know where all those things should be? Somewhere else. That's been the course of my career.
We're a NIMBY region.
Right.
Absolutely.
We're too far into this to
Yeah, but the things, the rationale for creating it back in 1980 was really founded on the fact they were concerned about congestion mitigation, which is growing. A bigger problem was air quality attainment and the threat of getting cut off on federal highway funds. And at that point in time, they being the federal government, was getting very aggressive about cutting back on funding on highways if you didn't do something on the transit side. So there was an economic motivation and a financial motivation for this. And so in addition to congestion mitigation, there was also the notion that rail service specifically would be the best way to extend out into the suburban areas and really bring people in. And again, going back to the 70s, downtown Dallas was the largest employment center.
Absolutely.
right.
And I think one of the most common topics I know as a kid growing up was people complained about Central Expressway.
Oh, yeah.
And then the project to expand it, that was such a defining issue of the 1970s in Dallas. So many people work downtown. All the professional organizations, the Engineers Club, the Petroleum Club, people went down there. That's where the Texas OU game was celebrated. People went downtown to do it. Things have changed so much in how people behave.
Well, and I think if you read anything about mass transit, it works in a downtown, area that has a lot of density. So I drop you off downtown, then you walk to your office building, you go to work. That makes like total sense.
A quick story was that during pandemic, it happened to be when I went back to DART as interim, it was a terrible time to do that. But there was one ridership mode that actually increased ridership during that period of time.
The Knives games.
Or was it? I don't know. I don't.
It was the old traditional streetcar.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
Because people were not, they wanted to get out. And the streetcar, if you remember, if you've been on it at all, it's open air. Yeah. And its ridership went up. It was the only one like in the country where you had rising ridership. But it told you a lot about, going back to your point about urban density and walkability and all that sorts of things. And that really says, where does mass transit work best? Well, it's in clustered, concentrated areas with sufficient density. Up there in the legacy area, you're beginning to see that, but the point is that it's not uniformly distributed, so it's much more challenging. It takes a long, long time. I think the point is that we're at a different place. Now, if I were giving you a formula today, I'd say I'd rewrite the formula. I'd say, number one, I'm going to put money into rail. First priority, intercity, regional rail. That's what Dallas area rapid transit should be. I mean, it's to connect the cities. Second thing right behind it is paratransit, because you've got to serve the people who are immobile or have limited mobility. After that, then you really have to say, okay, let's look at the individual jurisdictions, what's left, and make that more on probably a pro rata basis. It could be in the number of households. And then say, but the community needs to figure out how much do they want an Uber-like service versus fixed bus.
Uber's a perfect example of when you said that really was an epiphany, because the history of all of this is very interesting. And why did it start? And why did Dallas elect to do this? And the ones in Celtic? But thinking from a practical standpoint, like, what do you need regionally, statewide? I mean, and you look at Japan and other countries and you're like, how do they have these 175-mile-an-hour trains and we don't have anything? And it's been 45 years and we've been arguing. And that point is, I think, the best, which is practically what we need is speed. You've got the last mile technology that's coming out everywhere. Where the Fetties, I don't know if you've seen a Fetty yet. They're really cool. There's a bunch of different things you can do.
Well, we just had the autonomous cars come in.
Yeah, well, the autonomous cars are coming in that definitely can handle that last mile, but that gets expensive over.
Well, the other thing, what it absolutely solves the last mile. It's absolutely appropriate, particularly in suburban locations, but it actually adds to automobile congestion. In fact, it's more than you would think because you'll have empty cars driving around.
Yeah.
Well, so my point is, regardless of the autonomous vehicle versus Uber versus whatever last mile, if you make those connections faster to DFW Airport, I'd love to take a train to DFW Airport and not have to worry about
parking.
And so if there was a place I could go within a reasonable distance to my house, get on a train that's an express train, get there, get off, get on a plane, I'm trying to take minutes out of my day, not the cost.
So let me pick up on that because the question often I've heard posed is, can we do express trains? And the answer is yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got it's a double track system, and we have sidings, so we can set up express trains that can run and interleave with our regularly scheduled things to do exactly what you want. Now you've got to have
ridership to do it.
Well, it's more like you've got to have a willingness to serve a population that can afford to do other things.
Well, and also have enough stops and times because we all fly at different times. So you're going to have to have
you'd have trains that get you to the airport.
An example would be, why don't we, I don't have any dog in the fight. Why don't they try a train once an hour out of downtown Dallas to the airport?
Does one even go to the airport?
Stop. Yes. Right.
There's one to the airport? Okay.
Yes, but it stops 25 times.
Well, if Irving pulls out, you may get close to that, but there are 6 stops in Irving. But
that's the point, is like from downtown Dallas to the airport, an express line once an hour. A lot of people would take that.
How many people go? Do you know how many people use the DART to get to the airport?
The employees.
Okay.
It's the employees. It's not. It's partly because it's not as convenient. Now there are out of town visitors do use it much more because they're used to using it, and it's much easier to use now because now you can use Apple Pay or Samsung Pay, and you don't have to buy a card. You can just tap on the reader.
Well, for tourism, the perfect example. If you had an express line, the hotels in downtown would explode immediately. The tourism in downtown would explode. We've been talking about downtown forever. One quick solution: we have 2 tracks. That was my first question. He already answered it. Get one train once an hour, express from the airport to downtown. Just see what happens.
I agree that we should be innovating, and unfortunately, one of our most innovative cities, Plano, is the most frustrated with DART. But the point is that you're right about the innovation. Express trains should be. There has to be an emphasis to give priority to rail against bus. Unfortunately, when Nadine Lee arrived, she was being recruited to improve bus. She didn't really appreciate the fact that no one really briefed her on the fact that there's this underlying issue that was emerging.
No one briefed her either that her job was mostly political.
I won't get into that. But the point was they're solving a bus problem when in fact it was really a rail problem because the suburbs had a lot more stake in this than they anticipated. But to your point about experimentation on the more utilization, introduction of express trains, more things that are rider sensitive. I mean, we've talked years about where's the bar car? If you have commuter rail from downtown Dallas to downtown Fort Worth, why don't you have bar cars at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or wherever it is? But where are the meal train? So I spent, as you know, 10 years at Club Corp and another 7 years in consulting in the entertainment and theme park business. It's all about customer traction, having a new ride, making sure that you've got things that are customer facing and making it interesting, and that's what we've not done. Transit's terrible about making things
the reason is it's a lack of perspective. When I didn't know what I didn't know, and then I go to Chicago on a real estate tour, and I didn't realize that a lot of their retail nodes are around the stations, because when you actually see what's happening, you can't take a real estate tour in Chicago from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. or from 3 to 7 because the roads are all completely gridlocked. But what you can do is see all these guys and their buddies getting on trains at 7 a.m. from Highland Park, Illinois, riding the 40-minute train to downtown Chicago, getting off, and then guess what they do? They all go meet up at the exact same time. They grab a beer, they hop on, or they go to the bar cart, they come home. When they get off that train, wife and kids are waiting for them, and there's a park next door, and it's this idyllic, like, super kind of cool transit, like, okay, my schedule is this to this. This is when I don't need a car because I'm going to my workplace. It's walkable.
Which was built, to the needs of the people and the way the city operated, and it happened probably more naturally than like we have to have mass transit because everybody has it.
And another probably 20 years or so, when you go to City Line, you'll see a lot more of that. City Line's got both the silver line and the red line, going for intersecting with it now, and you have a big concentration, more to come. But you need those nodes out of which you can.
I think we're going to have a part 2. Because we are out of time, and I know y'all all have hard times and places to be. David, thank you so much for being here with us.
Really interesting.
Really interesting. I have way more questions than I had before we started.
Buy a ticket, ride a train
topic.
Anywhere. Just get out.
I need to take one. I'll take one before part 2.
It's going to cost you $350.
Another field trip.
Field trip. I like it. It's been the Working Title Show with Zach Sams. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.